It is now the time of year we need to go to Wyoming and check on the cabin. So we're going to take the scenic small highway route to Wyoming rather than go the dull, boring freeway. So it takes us through Burns, and the wind's blowing a good pace at Burns. We can see the colors of our nation flying high above McDonald's in Burns. There are always some seagulls standing around the parking lot at McDonald's. I guess maybe they like fast food as well. Even one that is apparently the lookout, standing up on top a light pole with the wind ruffling his feathers just a little bit. After Burns, we move on southeast to Burns a little over 100 miles, and the sun is beginning to set over what should be the Steens Mountains, although there's so much smoke from southern Oregon and northern California forest fires that the sun is just kind of a big yellow blob as we move down a little gravel road and then on to a dirt road to get to our daughter's property, where we have an old trailer house that we'll spend the night in. That's really neat out there. It's about 10 miles to the nearest neighbor, and the stargazing is, according to National Geographic, about less light pollution there than any place in the world. And we're about 7.5 or 8 miles off the nearest improved road. We move down the little 2-track road to the spot where we'll be spending the night. There's a liberal coat of dust going to cover everything, since the weather's been really dry and the wind has loosened up the dust. The next morning, we roll out of bed at a pretty good time, and we decided it would kind of be nice to spend one day out in the desert. So we'll get ready and go to Willow Creek Hot Springs. Willow Creek Hot Springs is a very pleasant hot springs with the water gurgling up in the hotter pool. You'll see the gas bubbles from volcanic gases jiggling their way to the surface in the hotter pool. This hotter pool is about 104 on most days, and then the cooler pool is like 100, so there's one for everything. After we soak at the hot springs a while, we head back for the desert property where we'll be spending the rest of the day and the night. We see a small herd of the wild horses racing their way across the road right in front of us. The bigger horse in the rear is the big stallion. Since we're spending the day here anyway, we're going out to a nearby dry lake bed called a playa. We spent the rest of the day around the property pulling some of the Russian thistles or tumbleweed. Then the next morning we roll out of bed as early as we can, and we're heading for Wyoming. We go down through the Owyhee Canyon near the town of Rome where the highway crosses, and notice the unusual rock and mud formations down on the way into the canyon, and we're heading for Wyoming. We see the Owyhee River ahead of us as we move eastward on a decent paved road. Through the little town of Rome with only one business, which is a gas station, a little store, a restaurant, and a motel. Then across the pretty Owyhee River as we move on toward Boise, Idaho. After the Owyhee River country, we move on over into Idaho and we start seeing the wonderful cropland around as we get near the Snake River Valley, cross the Snake River, and head for Craters of the Moon National Park. We always like to go this way so we don't have to do the freeway. And there's a bonus at Craters of the Moon National Park. There's a little hot springs near the road that you have to walk down a trail a little ways, and it's a wonderful hot springs maintained by volunteers, and the water is up to your chin deep, deep enough to swim in, and it's a perfect temperature and very nice clean water. The real name of this hot springs is Wild Rose, but we just simply call it Horse Trader Hot Springs due to an incident that happened here to us one time. The little path is pretty good going down there till you get right to the last. You have to climb over some basalt rock, but it's well worth it. We get down there and find there's a hot and cold stream, and you can even regulate the temperature in the hot springs. The cows seem to enjoy grazing near the hot springs on the grasses, and this old cow must be real important. She's got an earring in both ears. We cross a little bridge, and there it is, a really neat hot springs. We stay there for a while, and then we head on. We realize that if we're going to get to the cabin in the little amount of time we have to move on past Craters of the Moon National Park, which is all a volcanic place, and it's worth the time to go through it. But we've been through it numerous times and we're limited on time. So we'll just take a few pictures out the window as we move on eastward. Then through Idaho Falls, and this area used to be mostly potatoes, but I see they're growing lots and lots of barley. There must be a big market for barley out in this area this year. And also we see some patches of the canola seed that they use for a cooking oil. The sun is dipping low in the sky as our little V6 motor pushes us toward Wyoming at a good pace. The grain fields have a warm glow as the sun is sinking lower and lower toward the horizon, and the smoke in the air probably helps give it that warm glow. We can see the sun setting in our rearview mirror as we move on almost to Wyoming now, and finally we made it, but it was after dark. We scrambled to get the cabin ready for the night. We've got the beds already made, so all we had to do was set the canoe out, get in there, and crawl in our bed. We can't even see the mountains the next morning due to the smoke that's coming from Oregon. Then I go around the cabin and see the ground squirrel holes and the badger holes. The badgers are real active here. They've got nothing to do that just dig. They dig up ground squirrels and eat them. So in Marge's little flower bed, it looks like they've got a badger mine. Your hole that they've dug here, and Marge's cactus looks like they've been digging holes around it. I wonder what she's going to say about that. And then another big hole. Looks like everything's fallen in it. And holes up under the porch. Wow, what a hole there. Another big badger hole here. Here's another major hole. Looks like it's going to take me at least a half a day to fill these holes in. They're just everywhere. That badger sure been doing some digging. My lawnmower out here. I certainly hope it'll start. I feel it's necessary to keep the grass and weeds mowed around the cabin because we're out in kind of a sea of sagebrush here at the foot of the Wind River Mountains. This cabin is 7,600 foot above sea level, and if a fire would get started in that sagebrush, if I've got a buffer area mowed around the cabin for about 100 feet, then probably there's a good chance that we wouldn't lose the cabin if there were a sagebrush fire. Looks like Marge's cactus is blooming pretty good, and there's a whole lot of buds getting ready to come on the other frond of it. These are the prickly pear cactus, and they only bloom for a short period of time, but they're sure pretty when they do, and they close up at night. There's a little ground squirrel setting out in the front lawn. We're not there all that much, and they get real gentle where they're not used to anyone being around, and he's sitting there just waiting to hibernate. He'll be hibernating pretty soon because just as soon as all the green stuff is dried up, he'll go in a complete hibernation that he can't be aroused from. An old buck antelope strolls by just to show us his nice polished horns. Then we decide we need some stuff at the hardware store in Jackson, so we're going to head to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and go through the town. We're going to go up, and what I had planned was to go on a tourist ride. That's where they have two big heavy horses pulling a stagecoach through town. So I'm hoping to be able to do this. But when we got there and I tried stagecoach ride, I found that the horses weren't there right then, and they would be there about 4 o'clock. I guess maybe it's too hot for the horses at the time of day we were in town, but we won't have enough time to do that. And the tourists are around. This place is just absolutely crowded with tourists from all over the world. It's kind of the gateway to Yellowstone Park. So we won't spend a whole lot of time here. You might get trampled by the tourists. There's not a whole lot of room in Jackson, so the property prices are really expensive just because there's no other place they can build. And so they have to make use of every little bit of property here. There's a great big elk feeding lot not far from Jackson, so they have elk sculptures all over, and elk are a big thing here. Even if you were to make reservations, you can go on a sleigh ride out to help feed the elk in the winter, and the sleigh is pulled by horses too, so that would be really nice. Now we got to try to find us a parking spot in Jackson. We see some of their brass sculptures and other sculptures around. The Snake River is not far from here, so there's a lot of, they take tourists on raft rides down the Snake River too. Anyone that wants, if you've got extra money you want to get rid of, there's plenty of things to do it on in Jackson Hole. And if you want to buy something here, you better have a pretty bulging pocket full of money because things are super expensive. We go past the old antler arches in the town square, and these are known throughout the world, and they've been here forever, I guess. There's one on each corner of the town square, and so the tourists really love that. You can get inside the arch and have somebody take your picture. From all over the world, they're here.
Crossing. Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Here's the $1 Million Cowboy Bar.
Let's see if there's a place to park up here.
Mountain Trails Gallery. The Wright Brothers. The Wright Brothers, look at here. See there? Must be Mark Twain. So maybe he can help me out. He's got a whole load of wood. Well, here's Benjamin Franklin. I'll stand behind Benjamin Franklin. There. There's Benjamin Franklin. Maybe he's getting ready.
Oh.
Wow.
Amelia Earhart,
Yeah, this is Amelia Earhart. See? Right here. Looks like
Oh,
it too.
yeah.
Who is?
brass sculptures of most everything and everyone here. And this is in a shop, and these are for sale. 23,500 for that one. So you need a pocket full of money if you're going shopping here. And it's high-end art. And then out front was a sculpture of a couple fur trappers in a canoe. And then there's an Indian jewelry shop down here that supposedly has legitimate Sioux jewelry in it of lots of turquoise and different things. And you can go in this shop, and they've got all kinds of old Western clothes you can slip into and have your picture taken. But you better have $50 to do that. And then we head back to the cabin, and we see the antelope, or they've got their babies with them. The old mama does have their babies with them. And so they're out licking salt and eating grass right alongside our driveway. But by now, we have to get home. We're really busy at home. We're still cleaning up after that really bad ice storm. And so we've got to be getting out of there. And we go through Idaho and see the potato fields. And then along the Snake River, we see just oodles of sunflowers. And I'm not sure what they're doing with these, but there's just giant fields of sunflowers that are in bloom, and you can see the flowers on the sunflowers are pretty much all pointing the same direction because they follow the sun along. And so I don't know whether those go for cattle feed or something, or sunflower seeds or whatever. Then we move along a little road. We took the road kind of along the Snake River from Mountain Home, Idaho, up till we can go back over into Oregon. The smoke is still concealing the sun as it sets over Oregon as we head back into Oregon. And we're going to go to our trailer house on our daughter's property and spend the night again. And then we can decide when we want to head home from there.